Hey, what's up, Hill City family? We had our Vision Night this past Friday, and it was awesome. Thanks so much for everybody who came, but if you couldn't come, we wanted to just take a little bit of a swing at giving you a little bit of a recap of everything that we went on. If you guys don't know Ben is our executive pastor in the church language, executive pastor. We basically say visionary integrator. Ben is really great at figuring out how to make things happen. So there was a moment, go ahead.
I like the way you said that on Friday night. You said you're the gas pedal and I'm the brakes.
Yeah.
I'm the buzzkill.
Yeah. Sometimes he hits the brake so hard I hit my head off of the dashboard.
Sorry,
no, I'm
man.
just kidding.
Sorry.
No, you haven't done that at all yet. That's all right. But it was really funny because at the end of our Vision Night, so funny, we had, of course we went over because I'm like, I took way too long. And
we all did.
we started late. We were having fun with each other. Anyways, we have to clean up an entire band set list and everything in 15 minutes or whatever it was. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Ben just stands up. He's like, okay, go over here. You do this, you do this. We got it cleaned up in 15 minutes. The whole team came together.
It was pretty cool.
I told Ben afterwards, I was like, if it was up to me, I would have just said, can we come back on Monday? That was awesome, Ben.
It was good.
Ben's been a real blessing to me, man. You really are.
Thanks,
I
man.
hope you know that, man.
Yeah,
Seriously.
I feel the same way.
Huge blessing. So we want to go through, if you missed what Vision Night was all about, we're going to go through some simple points. We're not going to go through the entirety, that's for sure. It was a good 2-hour event. But, just some things that are on our hearts. And so I'm going to be talking vision. Ben is going to be talking about really the practical next steps. This is really both of our wheelhouses as leaders, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what we said from the beginning of Hill City, if you are joining us recently, or if you've been with us for a really long time, Hill City exists to point people to Jesus and purpose. And, we have had this mantra, we've had this vision, this goal in our mind with everything that we've done. And this next season, I think, is going to be the best setup that we've ever had. Right now is the best setup that we've ever had to build something that really points people to Jesus and purpose every single week, every time we gather, every time we meet. That's the point here. But I wanted to just share with you a little bit about what God dealt with my heart, and then we're going to talk about the future, and Ben's going to talk about the integration of those things. So about 9 months before the pandemic, the Lord really began to deal with my heart, a different way to do church. And it was something that was it was a little bit insecure. I don't know, I don't know, Ben, if you were around the room, but I think you were in Florida at that time. I might have even called you about it. But I was a little bit insecure about it. And I'm like, man, I just feel like we need to get into homes. We need to get into neighborhoods, because the primary burden that I had in my heart was none of these people in my neighborhood are actually going to church,
right.
And there's a lot of barriers to them not only coming to church, but once they come to church, really being able to receive, just because there's just such a big gap. And my heart was just burdened by that. And I just started to say, man, if we could actually have churches in every neighborhood, a healthy church in every neighborhood, wouldn't that be the goal? What if we empowered teachers and sent them out everywhere? And so I had this in my heart. And then when I remember feeling so insecure, sharing with the staff and talking with everybody, but I opened up to them about it. And we kind of came to a point where we're like, man, we're going to need a catalyst for something like this to take place.
Right.
And lo and behold, COVID hits. And so we make our pivot.
Yeah.
And the pivot was kind of like a water landing to an airplane. It was hard, but what wasn't in this past season, but we learned a lot. We really learned a lot.
For sure.
We had some rockets explode like Elon Musk, but we really, really learned a lot.
Yeah.
And I remember at the beginning of this, God dealing with my heart, Zach, you're going to come out of this with 300 gritties.
Yes.
And so we're asking you to be a gritty, to be somebody who's going to really rewrite the story, the spiritual trajectory of people all across the city. And gritties are people who come together. We want to crush consumerism. We're not in it for us. We're in it for other people. We're not in it because it looks good on Instagram. We're in it because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And that's what I define as a gritty. We're looking for 300 gritties. And so pointing people to Jesus, pointing people to purpose. There's one that we found in this mix, and it's pursuing authentic community.
Right.
And so, Ben, you're in an Anywhere group. You probably had a really great experience. I know you did, because we talk about it all the time. And I'm on a group me and everything, and I'm talking a lot. I want to hear from you. What do you think about Anywhere groups?
Well, I love it. I think the thing that COVID taught us, and the idea of taking the church out of a building and into the homes, was that the way we were doing church, going every week, at this case, with Hill City, at the school, and meeting every week and doing church in that way, it was never incorrect. What Anywhere groups taught us is that it was incomplete. Mm-hmm. It wasn't enough. We were missing something. And that idea of deep relational connection that comes in the context and the place of Church Anywhere groups, that's been everything in this past year. Yeah. In a society that is forcing disconnection, I think we've created intimate connection. Yes. And in our group in particular, man, the things we've been able to walk with people alongside of and walk through them with, it's been a blessing, it's been an honor, it's been a challenge, but it feels a whole lot like the New Testament church. So I love it. It's like everybody in the group gets to do ministry, not just the guys who are quote unquote paid to do it in church. Like ministry's in everybody's hands.
Yeah, and this has actually solved a huge problem for me. It's the burden of coming up with a sermon that disciples the whole church is a burden that I don't think is actually right. Like, I think discipleship is so much deeper than just hearing a sermon. And a lot of times we've created these mindsets within the church of pastor feed me, pastor feed me, pastor feed me.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a consumeristic mindset of like, I'm going to come, I'm going to consume. You're going to feed me. And if you don't like if I don't like what you have to say, I'm going to go somewhere else where I get a different meal.
Try a different meal. Yep.
Different restaurant. Yeah. And now what I found is, like, this past week in our Anywhere group, Sarah Nettles is going through the discussion. I actually spent time with the kids. It was kind of hilarious, okay? But Sarah Nettles is leading the group in discussion, and Sarah's pouring her heart into everybody around the table.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing this amazing gift inside of Sarah, and I'm like, this is why we do this.
Yeah.
Because she has so much inside of her. Now it's taken discipleship off of my shoulders, so to speak. Now I'm still in charge of that, obviously. This is not a cop-out, but like working harder on messages than ever. But it's giving it to the average person, the ordinary person.
Well, I think Paul talks about that, right?
Yeah.
Like in the book of Ephesians. He says that for those of us who are in vocational ministry, guys like me and you, our job isn't to do all the ministry. Our job is to equip saints to do the work of the ministry.
So true.
And I think we're seeing that play out, which is really fun, like to see it come alive. And what's interesting is, and I think you'll say that this has been true, isn't it interesting that when you do it the way it's kind of prescribed in the Bible, it works?
Yeah, it
like it's
works.
working. It's so cool to see it working.
Yeah, because now we're seeing everybody in the church get prayed for every week.
Right.
Like, before we would have people come up to the front, and maybe we would have 15 or 20 people between two services come up to the front and receive prayer, and that was a win for us.
Yeah.
Now it's a win that 90% of our church actually gets prayed for specifically.
Yeah.
Every single week. Like, I love that. I'm actually praying for my group this week. We opened up about some things. I'm like, I'm continuing to pray for them throughout the week. We just know each other at a completely different level.
Yeah.
And that is New Testament Christianity.
It is. Well, we're seeing the same thing too, in it's a little bit of a different way. We're seeing people who are walking through very specific issues, the type of issue that if you were going through in life, you would think, I must be the only one. And what we're seeing in our group is that God has orchestrated people around people who are going through things who've gone through similar things, which again, Paul talks to that. He speaks in Colossians about how when we go through hard times, the Lord kind of redeems that almost and helps us to lead others through it. Well, we're seeing that play out. Things that I wouldn't have any experience to speak to in people's lives, but other people are able to speak into those. And it's so cool. I mean, I don't sit back with my legs kicked up, but there's a sense of like, it's not like Ben has to have this. It's like, no, we've got this together. It's really fun.
I remember when I was on staff with Pastor John at Victory, he used to say this, that a healthy church consists of three aspects: discipleship, evangelism, discipleship, and care.
Yeah.
And so primarily, like, we've been focused on evangelism, then we're noticing the changes in discipleship. Like, this is really taking discipleship to the next level. Like, we have like 70 guys right now reading the Bible in a year. That's like overwhelming to me. But that's so cool. It's wonderful. But the care aspect of it, I think you were just speaking to, people are truly getting cared for. And it's not just care on me, care on, our care team who's tearing it up, by the way, but it's I have somebody that I can call right away. Yeah. And this has been that's beautiful. Yeah. That is New Testament Christianity. There's no better way to put it.
No, that's right. And that's what I love about it, right? So when we think about pointing people to Jesus and the idea of a Sunday worship experience, a together type of moment, right? Like, that works really well for somebody who's far from God to come in and get exposure and get experience and experience God's presence, and we can walk with them in that space. But there's things that we can do in the church lobby. We can greet them. We can give them a next step. But there's places in their life we can't explore in the lobby. The living room lets us do that. And that's what Church Anywhere groups have created.
Oh, man, I love that. So we want to point people to Jesus. We want to pursue authentic community. And we want to point people to purpose, And we're finding this way's working, man. It's been really fun. I just want to read you a couple things that have just been on my heart just for vision for the future. Okay, so pointing people to Jesus. The greatest opportunity that we have as a church is going to be to lead people to Christ within our services, within our weekend services. But the greatest opportunity that you have as an individual is to lead people to Christ within your neighborhood. Right. And this is what we want to empower. Right. So it's not like, I guess one of the things is like, as we look at incorporating things from the past that worked with the things that we learned during the COVID season, that also worked, and blending those things. We don't want to say either one is better than the other.
Yep.
We don't want to swing the pendulum, far over here and say, oh, we're never going to meet in person. We just are finding in it the value and the benefit of both so much. So I want to speak, I'm missing more regular meetings. I'm just missing it. My kids are missing it. Yep. We're personally missing it. And so that's something that we're working toward. And so we'll talk about what a fall relaunch means. We'll define that in a minute. But it's important that we know we're working to blend the things that worked in the past with the things that are working in our present. Mm-hmm. That's what the future is really going to look like, right? So we want to point people to Jesus in our services, pursuing authentic community. Just hear this. This is our goal for all of our groups. And it's important that I read this to you because I just want to set a standard for you all, our groups exist to create a place so safe that the worst of a person can be known, and they find that they're only more loved in the telling of it. I love that.
I love that, man. And think about that. I know some of your story, and I certainly know my story. Yeah. Isn't that true that that's where we experienced the most life change?
Yes.
When we were able to be close to people who were able to see the worst of us, but loved us more as a result.
Yes.
That's where life change can happen.
Yes. Somebody who loved us but didn't want anything out of us.
Correct.
And it wasn't some kind of just passing by. And man, our life, we have an opportunity to give our life to Jesus within a service, but truly life change, transformation always trumps conversion to me.
Yes.
It's transformation.
Transformation trumps conversion.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, 100%.
Good stuff. And then pointing people to purpose. I love this quote. It's from the book, The Cure. It's just so good. It's destiny is what happens when those God-given desires mixed with my particular gifting are allowed to be healed, matured, and released to freely give away. I just really love that.
Yeah,
that's where we're going to be headed with pointing people to purpose. This is super simple. So we're going to be blending the things that work from the past with the things that are working in our current. We want to continue to put an emphasis on discipleship, evangelism, and care. And I think that we found the way that we are. And I just want to share that God He's used this season to carve out a new stream. And if we were to continue just to do what worked in the past, man, that brook is going to dry up. It's not that it's not that brook is irrelevant. It's not that it wasn't good for a season. It certainly was. But God has a new stream for us. And I'm just really asking everybody to get on board with this stream. Yeah. Try something new. Yeah. Give it a shot. If you give us a year, I'm pretty sure you're going to fall in love with this and you're going to see more growth in your life than you've ever seen. You just give it a year.
Money back guarantee.
Yeah. Yeah, let's do that. Ben's good at that. He can figure that out.
I don't know how we'd actually do that. We don't charge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Money back. You do it for free. So that's funny. Yeah, and I really see us launching into that new stream and going down that stream. And part of that is going to be with kids ministry in this next season. So something that's been on my heart that God's just really been dealing with me is whoever wants the next generation the most is going to win them. Yeah. And I don't know, I've just been praying and just been thinking Lord, we need to reach the next generation. If I can just be my 100% self and just share, churches all over the United States are empty right now, are dying right now, are closing their doors right now, not because they shut down because of COVID, but because they never paid attention to kids and youth and young adults. We have such an immense opportunity within Moon, within Robinson, within Robert Morris right now. It's unbelievable. And so we see all this vision. We see just right down the street from here, Quaker Valley, there are thousands and thousands of kids all around us. And whoever wants those kids the most is going to get them. So it's been on my heart to really invest in the next generation. Yeah. And so we should probably talk about a little bit about Brian and the transition with Aerie and the farmers and where everybody's headed. Do you want to say?
Well, I think it's a good point because we've been tossing around just this phrase that Hill City will move forward at the pace of leaders and resources. Yeah. And in this case, this burden requires leaders.
Yes.
Somebody has to take that mantle, if you will, and kind of run with that vision. Yeah. And as that burden was stirring in you, the Lord started to present the potential leaders over family ministries, the next generation space. Not that we haven't had great leaders and Ari over kids and Eric and Tori over the student side of things, but in seasons of transition with where they're headed, the Lord has provided the leaders that we're going to need to actually not just chase that burden down, but make a real difference in the next generation.
I'm chuckling because with Ari and with Tori and Eric, we knew this was going to be temporary with these guys from the beginning.
They basically raised their hand and said okay, we'll help, right?
Yeah, it was really funny. With Tori and Eric, we were in Chick-fil-A and I was like, I just want to do ministry with you guys. Like, I love you. Don't you love Eric? Like, he's so fun.
He's so fun.
We went to Montana, and Eric was like, I'm going to run to the stream real quick. And it looked like it was everything's flat there, so our depth perception was off. It was like a mile away. Like, he didn't get back before
There was grass above his head before we ever got to the stream. We lost him in the weeds. Literally lost him in the weeds.
Where'd he go? Eric is always that entertaining. So fun. And we just want to do ministry with these guys. Like, Tori and Eric, I love those guys. Their Anywhere group is actually this unbelievable in Greensburg. They're doing such a great job with it. But I said, hey, this is a foot in the door. Let's just give this a shot. We really need some help with youth. And Eric was like, well, I wasn't really thinking that, but yeah, like, okay, like, we'll do it. And that's Eric. That's Tori. They're just willing to help. Like, seriously. And guys like Eric, you're awesome, man. Like, thank you so much for just being a stopgap for serving, for, like, I know how much you're working, and you drive an hour and a half, you come out here once a month in this building, babies,
That wasn't a secret, right?
No, that wasn't a secret.
I thought I saw that on social media.
Yeah, she's like 10 weeks away, so it's pretty visible at this point. You know, Eric and Tori, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. The same thing with Ari. You know, Ari came in, we hired Mike, and Ari was like, well, I can help with kids. You know, she's a teacher in Louisiana. Ari's really, really sharp. Yeah. And Ari has done just such a great job just organizing, just holding it down. But we always knew that it wasn't going to be a long-term thing. Actually, with Ari, she's shifting into some different things.
She has some giftedness in some really special spaces. So I'm really excited about the next year for Ari.
Yeah, me too.
Sure.
Yeah, me too. So, you know, all these people are obviously going to be staying with us, moving different roles and continuing various capacities. But, like,
it created an opportunity, an opening.
Yeah. And with Brian, we're on the bike trail, and I can't get this out. Like, Brian's a good dear friend of mine, and I just can't get this out of my heart. And I didn't even know what Brian would, you know, have overseen, like, at this time. I'm like, but I'm listening to him, and I'm hearing as a lead pastor at Treeline, Brian is talking about Treeline exists to essentially affect family trees for Christ. Yep. And so he's talking about the family. He said, and he actually said this line to me, and it blew me away. He said, Zach, like, starting a church was a front for reaching kids. Yeah. And this burden has been on his heart. And so it just started to become very clear to me. I'm like, man, he's got a lifelong call to this. That's amazing.
Yeah. You know, when someone just comes up with a clever saying or a clever marketing thing, like, we're going to call our church this for this reason. Yeah. There's a shallowness to it versus what comes out of Brian when you spend any amount of time with them. This idea of passion for families, next generation, it literally oozes. It's like a core value, like a true core value inside of him. Like,
it really is.
Deeply burdened to step into the space. And I love that.
Yeah.
His gifting, his calling matches the burden that the Lord's placed on you as the visionary leader of this house. And so how cool that in this season, he's not only marrying Hill City and Treeline together, but we get the great gift that's inside of Brian. And when I say we, I mean our families, our kids, our students, our college-age kids. Like, they're going to get the gift of all that the Lord has put inside of Brian in this next season, in that space of Over Family Ministries. Yeah.
And it's, as you say that, the benefit for me is I was running kids last week. There's a big benefit there. I was like,
listen, all the Church Anywhere group leaders just said amen. Like, they know.
And so we want to lean into this of kids anywhere. Like, how do we do youth ministry and children's ministry in this current model? And I need somebody who's going to be able to think about the future with that burden in their heart. Yeah. You know, Brian's got umpteen kids, like, you know, four children. And so, he does. But, like, that lifelong call, and Ryan and Jasmine have been with him at Treeline. And Brian even told me sometimes at Treeline, they have more kids in their church than they would adults. Like,
I believe it.
It's just a calling. When somebody has a calling, that's what you see on their lives.
That's right.
So we're super blessed to be entering into a relationship with these guys. But it's important to know that a merger like this, we're not going to be changing our name. We're not going to be, you know, changing much of anything.
Well, I think we've tossed around, what do we call this? Is it a merger? Is it an adoption? And I think marriage is a fun word. Yeah. Because in a marriage, when a husband and a wife get married, we keep one last name, right? Yeah. But the legacy of the other, the wife's last name still exists. And I think that's kind of like what this is, a little bit. It's not a perfect metaphor, but we're still Hill City Church. We're growing because this other family is coming together with our family. Yeah. In this season where Treeline's going to be a part of. Yeah. Hill City. Yeah. Which is fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's fun to do ministry with friends. Yeah. You know? It's fun to do ministry with friends. This is going to be a great season, guys, and we're super pumped about it. We have a couple of goals coming out of this season, though. We wanted to really clarify what a relaunch looks like. And so Pastor Zack is going to back off a little bit. I'm going to hand the ball over to Ben, and he's going to be able to walk us through a little bit more practicals, because I could talk vision. I could talk up here all day.
Yeah.
I've got hours on my mind if you want to stick around with us. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead. So what are our goals? Like, what are our tangible goals in this next season?
Right. Well, and I think it's interesting. Like, we have to go back a little bit, right? And we have to at least acknowledge that COVID was a disruptor. At minimum, to say that, right? Like, it just really disrupted the rhythm of what we were doing. Now, in that disruption, we found a great gift, and we've spoken to some of that with Church Anywhere. But as we think about not even life getting back to normal, but being on a better side of this pandemic, but also embracing the fullness of what God has shown us, where he's leading us, and what he seems to be building and bringing together, we've been throwing the phrase relaunch around. Like, there's a season for Hill City to kind of come back above the water, if you will, a little bit. And so maybe rebuilding would be a better phrase than relaunch, but there's really no perfect phrase. So what we've tried to do is kind of capture it thematically, what it means, right? So kind of 4 big buckets. So here's what relaunch means, and this, I'm looking at you, but I should be looking at them. When we think, this is how we've talked about it as a staff, right? Yeah. So as a staff, our focus is going to be around these 4 areas. And the first one is creating a regular rhythm of church together and church anywhere. So church together meaning gathering, right? That when we come together, corporate worship. And we've had to do that primarily digitally or once a month in person in a variety of different ways in the past season. The goal is that in the fall is that we can really establish a regular rhythm of church together, but also not abandoning church anywhere. Mm-hmm. So it's both. It's a both and. It's the 2. It's church together, church anywhere. Church together, we're here, we're worshiping in the house. Church anywhere are groups. So that's a focus. That's one of the big themes moving into the fall. The second big theme really is finding a home base, a headquarters, and really establishing that hub. And we just don't have the time to really dive into the depths of it, but we're looking. We're looking hard. I sent you 4 new properties today for us to look at. And so we're actively looking for what the church home could look like.
They're nice, but do they want a church in there? That's what we've been running into.
That's the big question, right?
It's like, we've got all these ordinances, and the anchor tenants who are like, you can't have a church next to us.
It's more complex than you would think. I can imagine not having ever walked through this process and thinking, there's open buildings everywhere. Yeah. Not all open buildings are open to having a church in their building. Yes. It's probably the best way to say it.
He's great with words.
Oh, thanks. I'm trying. Yeah. So, but home base, that is a huge goal, because if we're going to have a regular rhythm of church together, we realize that it requires a home base. Yeah. And so
why can't we build right now, Ben?
Oh. The land, you say it best. Yeah. The land is Statue of Liberty land. Yeah. Beautiful to look at, impossible to get to. And so there are zoning issues, there are development costs. It sits on old mine tailings. It's literally over old mine shafts. So it's not that it's impossible to build there, it's expensive to build there, but we're moving forward. So we've got engineers involved. We're working really hard to build a roadmap and to create a site development plan that we can put in front of the 2 townships that the property sits on this summer to just get some sort of conceptual approval to what a building could look like. Yeah. But development of that land is in our future. I think we all see and feel and sense that when we're up there worshiping for those open air gatherings. I think we all think the land is the future, but it's long-term future. Yeah. It's not short-term future. It's going to take some time. Yeah. But we're working on it. Like, it's not just one day a building's going to hatch up there. I mean, we know that. So we're putting effort into it, but we have to be measured in whatever we put into it in this season in light of other focuses that we're working on.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a significant cost just to develop the land.
Yeah, like just land development. So no building, but to get the land prepped and ready to go and parking lots. So all land development, no building is like $2.5 million. And that's if the township doesn't make us improve the road that you have to take for 1.5 miles or 2 miles to get there. So I mean, it's not cheap.
Yeah. It's not cheap. We're not huge proponents of debt. We love to live with margin. Lauren and I do this personally. We love to have margin, because then when we run into a time like COVID, I could look my staff in the eyes and say, none of you are getting laid off because we have emergency savings. No matter what happens, if people stop giving for the next 6 months, you guys will still have a job.
Yeah, well, and a church
that's my value.
It's so true, and I'm so thankful for it, because a church that abandons financial margins is a church that is committing to operating by pressure. Yeah. Because then all of a sudden we have to make it happen each week. Yes. And that's not a fair burden for a church.
We could talk about that all day.
We could. I got battle scars.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a regular rhythm of church anywhere and church together. It's establishing a new home base. And then number 3 is really establishing a kids and student strategy that translates to both the church together and church anywhere environments. It matters, right?
It does.
Like, we have to be able to reach that age group, create environments that the Lord can speak to them, that they can grow in, that they can be discipled in, whether we're together or whether they're in their anywhere group. And we recognize that that has been a struggle for the anywhere groups. But that's, again, with Pastor Brian and Ryan and Jasmine coming on board, I know we're going to be able to put more focus into that space than we ever have before. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Anything else?
Well, the fourth thought
yeah,
really is the fourth theme
okay.
is just the idea of rebuilding our teams.
Yeah.
Okay, so regular rhythm of church anywhere and church together, finding a new home base, kids and student strategy, and then the fourth piece is rebuilding our teams. And the reality was that it's like a muscle you don't use; it'll atrophy. Yeah. Well, we haven't had to use our serve team muscles that much in the past year because we haven't been gathering. But we recognize that as the erosion of those teams has occurred, if we're going to relaunch or rebuild for the fall, reestablishing that team culture is really, really important.
Yeah.
And so we're super thankful. So many of you who were at Vision Night filled out a card and shared a lot of things with us, but also allowed us to see into your heart of where you feel called to jump in and get involved. So we're going to be reaching out to you. We're assembling all that data now. It's a lot to kind of organize, but we've got it and we're thankful. So we're excited about again, it goes back to what Paul said, like, let's equip the saints to do the work of the ministry. And sometimes the work of the ministry looks like praying for people or taking a meal to them, and sometimes it looks like holding a door or greeting somebody at the parking lot. It's all of the above. It's both and.
Yep.
And so we're excited about it.
That's awesome. I appreciate Ben so much, and I can't wait for you guys to get to know him. He came in June, so it's like right in the middle of everything, and so just relationally, it's one of my best friends in the world, but it's so fun working with him every day too. Like, this is a good season. It's going to be a good season for us as well. So not only are we dreaming, but we're thinking things through. And I couldn't move forward without saying, hey guys, we really thought this through. Like, it's a value of us. Like, oh yeah, we're just going to shoot from the hip. We can't do that. It's people's lives mean too much to us. I mean, you've given so much to us. Most likely, if you're watching right now, like, you've given and you've sacrificed so much. We owe you our very best, like, with this thing. We really do. And I just close by telling you a quick story. I was meeting up with one of my pastors, Alan Spiegel, down in Alabama. He comes up and speaks every once in a while. He's the best.
Yeah.
He's full of wisdom.
Yeah.
Janice is a blast. You guys have to meet Janice at some point. But anyways, he said to me, Zach, he said, if you allow people in your church, if you allow the people of your church to expect things out of you, but you never expect anything out of them, they'll walk away offended 100% of the time.
Wow. Yeah.
And I had thought about that. It really resonated with
it's
me.
good.
He said, you need to get to a place where you can look at the people in the eye and say, I'm expecting something out of you, and you can expect something out of me. He said, what other relationship do you have where people can expect something out of you and you can't expect anything out of them? He said, if you have that in a marriage or with your children or with your parents or with your friends, that's pretty much an unhealthy relationship. Don't subject yourself to that, So he said, you have to get to a place where you're comfortable letting people know what you expect out of them. And so, hey, I'm just expecting you. If you're a part of the Hill City community, I am just asking you to get involved with us, to be a Hill City Gritty. And you can go on our website, right? You can go on our website, fill out a contact form, and just let us know, like,
put
hey,
a link
I'm a Hill City
with
Gritty.
this video, right?
Yeah, we could
Somebody
do something
knows how to
like
do that.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, we'll do it. So, but we're asking you to get involved. We cannot do this without you. You can fulfill the purpose of God for your life without us, okay? If you ever hear me say that you can't fulfill the purpose of God for your life without me, I've just become a cult leader, okay? So, abandon ship, just go.
Oh, man.
But we cannot fulfill the purpose of God without you. This is like what we're called to do, is rally everybody together. And I can't guarantee that we can bring you on staff. I can't guarantee that you're never going to get offended, but I can guarantee that we're going to impact the city of Pittsburgh together. I can guarantee that we're going to build something that when we're at the end of our life and we're looking back, we can all be proud that we set our hands to this.
Yeah, so good.
This is what we feel. So
good.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for listening to us. If you want to be a Hill City Gritty, I'm going to put something down here. You just go right there. Yeah, right there. And we'll let you know how to do it. Love you guys. Anything to say before we go, Ben?
No.
No? Okay. Awesome. Bye, guys.